Oh, so they finally figured it out. After all that time. After all those careful little moves they thought you never noticed. After every whispered conversation you were never supposed to hear. Every side glance you were never supposed to catch. Every calculated silence you were never supposed to decode. They finally realized it. You already knew. You knew everything. And the look on their face when that truth landed, that jaw-dropping, breath-stealing, earth-shifting moment of realization, that is exactly what we are here to stand inside tonight. Introducing the book that was written for those who were never taken seriously. Joker's Crown, How the Man They Laughed At Became the One They Fear, is finally here. This is not a self-help book. This is not motivation wrapped in pretty words. This is the cold, precise blueprint of psychological transformation, from the person the room ignored to the presence the room cannot forget. It maps the silent evolution that happens when someone stops begging for respect and starts commanding it without a single word. Every chapter is a stage. Every page is a weapon. And by the end, you will not recognize the version of yourself that started reading. Available now for just $3, because the most dangerous ideas should be accessible to everyone. Get your copy. The Crown is waiting. Let's be very precise about what happened. This was not luck. This was not coincidence. This was not some fortunate accident where information fell into your lap at the right moment. This was the result of years of watching in silence, reading between lines most people never even notice exist, absorbing patterns while everyone else was distracted by noise and performance. You became fluent in a language they thought was invisible, and the moment they realized you had been reading them like an open book the whole time, something in them shattered, completely, permanently. They had a plan, a beautiful, layered, carefully constructed plan. They thought they were operating 10 moves ahead of you. They thought the architecture of their scheme was airtight, sealed, invisible to anyone who didn't have the blueprint. But here is what they forgot. Here is the catastrophic miscalculation they made at the very beginning. They forgot that you were watching, not with desperation, not with suspicion, but with the cold, quiet patience of someone who already understood the ending before the first act even began. The jaw drop wasn't just surprise. Let me tell you what that jaw drop actually was. It was the physical collapse of an illusion they had been living inside for far too long. It was the moment their entire constructed reality cracked under the weight of your accuracy. It was the second they understood in the marrow of their bones, not just in their minds, that the person they thought was one step behind them had been standing 3 floors above them the entire time. Watching, knowing, waiting, not out of revenge, but because the truth was simply yours to carry. And you never said a word. That is the part that will haunt them forever. There is a specific kind of power that lives inside the person who knows and says nothing. It is not passive. It is not patience born from weakness. It is the most disciplined form of strategy that exists. The decision to hold knowledge like a weight you never put down, simply because the weight of it in your hands is enough to change everything. You mastered that power. You carried it without flinching, without leaking it, without letting a single facial expression betray what you knew was happening underneath every surface they showed you. They talked around you. They spoke in codes they invented specifically to keep you out. They shifted conversations the moment you entered rooms. They exchanged looks across tables they thought were invisible to you. And all of it, every signal, every deflection, every micro-expression they couldn't fully suppress was being cataloged. Not obsessively, not bitterly, just accurately. Because your mind doesn't miss things. Your mind never missed things. And the longer they underestimated you, the more complete your picture became. See, they made the oldest mistake in the entire history of human miscalculation. They confused your silence with ignorance. They looked at your stillness and saw someone who didn't understand what was happening. They interpreted your composure as obliviousness. They watched you smile through situations that should have broken you and concluded you must not know. But the truth, the devastating, soul-shaking truth, is that you smiled because you knew, because you had already processed it, because you were already past the point where it could hurt you, and they hadn't even realized the game had already been played. There is something uniquely unsettling about a person who refuses to show you their hand. Because as long as someone is reacting, as long as they're defending, as long as they're emotional and scrambling and visibly affected, you have a map of their interior world. You know where the pressure points are. You know what they value. You know where they're vulnerable. But a person who sits still, who absorbs everything without output, who watches without revealing what they've seen, that person is a locked room. And some people will destroy themselves trying to find the door. They tried to find your door, they tested you, they fed you small pieces of misinformation to see if you'd repeat them. They manufactured small crises to observe how you'd respond. They sent messengers, people disguised as neutrals, people playing friendly to extract information they couldn't get directly. And every single time, you gave them exactly nothing useful. Not because you were strategizing in the moment, but because you already knew who the messengers were working for. You already knew the test before they administered it. You had already passed. The fundamental thing they never understood about you, the thing that made every single one of their calculations wrong from the beginning, is that you don't process the world the way they do. They move through life broadcasting. Every thought, every feeling, every shift in their internal state finds its way to the surface somehow. They leak, they telegraph. They can't help it, because they've never had to develop the discipline of concealment. They never needed it, because they were always the ones doing the watching, never the ones being watched. But you were different. You learned early. You learned in rooms that weren't safe, in situations that didn't forgive mistakes, in environments where reading people wasn't a skill, it was survival. While they were learning how to perform confidence, you were learning how to read it. While they were learning how to construct narratives, you were learning how to find the seams in them. While they were building masks, you were becoming fluent in the language of what lives behind masks. And by the time they met you, you had been doing this for years. They were walking into an examination they hadn't studied for. They thought they knew you because they knew your surface. They knew your name, your history, your patterns, your preferences, the parts you offered willingly, because you understood that what you choose to show is itself a form of control. They collected those details and built a model of you in their minds, a model that was clean and legible and entirely manageable. A model that told them exactly how you'd respond, where your limits were, what you'd tolerate, what you'd never see coming. And they trusted that model completely. That was the fatal error. Because the model was missing the most important variable. It accounted for your visible self, the version of you that exists in public, in conversation, in the roles you inhabit. But it never reached the version of you that exists in private, in the silence, in the hours when no one is watching and you're simply processing everything you've absorbed. That version had been running calculations they never knew about. That version had been connecting dots they never knew were connected. That version had already arrived at conclusions they thought were still impossible to reach. And the jaw drop, that beautiful, clarifying, unforgettable jaw drop, was the moment those two versions collided in full. The moment the model they had built of you met the reality of you. And the model didn't survive the impact. It had never been accurate. It had always been a comfortable fiction they told themselves to feel in control of a situation they were never actually controlling. And now they knew it. They knew it the way you only know something when the evidence is standing directly in front of you, speaking calmly in full sentences. Let's talk about accuracy. Real accuracy, not guessing, not paranoia dressed as insight, not pattern recognition that sees conspiracies and coincidences. The kind of accuracy you demonstrated is the product of sustained, disciplined, emotionally regulated observation over time. It is almost clinical in its precision. It requires you to remove your ego from the equation entirely, to see situations not as they affect you, but as they actually are, to resist the human tendency to interpret data through the lens of what you wish were true. That is extraordinarily rare, and they were not prepared for it. When you named something they thought was hidden, the first thing they felt was not anger. It was vertigo. Because accurate exposure doesn't just reveal a secret, it dismantles the person's understanding of reality. They had been operating under the assumption that their hidden architecture was intact, invisible, safe, and your precision didn't just puncture that assumption, it atomized it. In the space of a sentence, a question, a single look that landed exactly where it needed to land. Their entire constructed world became unreliable. If you knew this, what else did you know? If you saw this, what else had you seen? That's the thing about accuracy at the level you operate. It's not just informational, it's existential. When someone reads you with that degree of precision, when someone names your interior moves with vocabulary you didn't know existed, when someone describes the architecture of your own deception back to you with the calm of a person reviewing a document they've already memorized, it reaches into something primal. It reaches into the fear. Every person carries the fear of being truly, completely, inescapably known. And they felt that, in the full force of it, without warning. And you delivered it without cruelty. That was the part that broke something extra in them. Because cruelty they could have dismissed. Anger they could have reframed as insecurity, as overreaction, as instability. But you were calm, you were precise, you were almost composed about it. You gave them the truth the way a person gives a verdict, not to wound, but because the truth is the truth, and pretending otherwise helps no one. That composure, in the face of what you were revealing, communicated something they will never fully recover from. You had been at peace with this knowledge for a very long time. While they were scrambling in the aftermath of your accuracy, you had already moved on internally. You had already processed the grief of it, the anger of it, the disappointment of it back when you first understood what was happening months or years before this moment. The emotional labor was already complete. You came to this conversation already healed from the wound they didn't know you'd discovered. And that asymmetry, your peace against their shock, is the final proof of just how far ahead of them you had been operating the entire time. There were people in your orbit, maybe there still are, who watched you move through situations that would have destroyed most people, and they attributed it to luck, to circumstance, to things being less difficult than they appeared. They couldn't conceive of the alternative, that you were navigating those situations with information they didn't have, with a map they couldn't see, with a level of situational understanding that made what looked like chaos to them feel perfectly legible to you. They watched you survive and called it fortunate. They had no vocabulary for what you actually were. And what you actually were, what you are, is someone who did the hard, invisible, utterly unglamorous work of understanding the people around you. Not to exploit them, not to manipulate them, but because understanding your environment is the only rational response to living in one. You paid attention when others were distracted. You remembered details others discarded as irrelevant. You held contradictions in your mind long enough to resolve them instead of flattening them into comfortable narratives. And over time, that work produced something extraordinary. A picture of reality so complete and accurate that people couldn't recognize their own reflection in it. That is what they witnessed when the jaws dropped. They weren't just surprised by a secret revealed. They were confronted with evidence that an entirely different level of perception had been operating in their vicinity quietly, continuously, without announcement for as long as they'd known you. That the person they had underestimated, managed, or simply overlooked had been operating with a clarity of sight they couldn't match and had never even suspected. That is a very specific kind of shock. The kind that doesn't fade with a night's sleep or a week's distance. Because it's not just about this moment. It's about every moment that came before it. Every time they thought they were getting away with something. Every time they felt the quiet satisfaction of believing they were ahead. All of those moments are now retroactively exposed. All of that private confidence has been revealed as illusion. They didn't just lose the present, they lost the entire history of the relationship in a single breath. And there is no way to reclaim what was never actually theirs to begin with. The foundation was always sand. You just let them build on it in peace. You didn't say everything you knew. You almost certainly revealed only a fraction of the complete picture, and they know that. They know that the accuracy they witnessed is the surface layer of a much deeper archive. And the knowledge that you're still holding the rest of it, that it exists, that it's precise, that you could surface it at any moment, is what will occupy their thoughts longer than anything you've already said. Not what was revealed, what wasn't. The suspected remainder. That is the weight they carry now, and they built it themselves. Let's be unflinching about this. Let's look directly at what is happening inside them now that they've experienced your accuracy firsthand. Because it is not a simple process. It is not embarrassment that fades in a week. What you've triggered in them is a full structural review, an involuntary, relentless audit of every interaction, every assumption, every move made under the belief that you couldn't see what was happening. And that audit doesn't have a clean ending. It just generates more questions. It just keeps finding more evidence of their own miscalculation. The first stage is denial. They'll attempt to reframe your accuracy as coincidence, as guessing, as something someone told you. They'll construct alternative explanations for how you could have known without having actually known. Because the alternative, that you simply observed them well enough to understand them completely, is too destabilizing to accept immediately. The ego cannot absorb that truth in one sitting. It needs to try the exits first. It needs to exhaust every other possibility before it accepts the most obvious one. That process is painful, and it belongs entirely to them. The second stage is inventory. This is when the review begins in full. This is when they go back through the archive of shared history and look at everything differently. Every conversation reinterpreted, every silence re-examined, every moment you didn't react the way they expected. Now it has new meaning. Now it wasn't confusion. Now it wasn't obliviousness. Now it was choice. Now it was knowledge worn as neutrality. And the further back they go, the more unsettling the picture becomes. Because your accuracy didn't begin with this moment. It has roots that reach far deeper than they imagined. The third stage is the recalibration of power. This is the most profound shift, the moment they have to completely rebuild their internal model of the relationship and of themselves within it. They had assigned themselves a role. They had believed in a hierarchy. They had been operating from a position of assumed advantage. And your accuracy has not just challenged that position, it has obliterated the ground it stood on. They are not who they thought they were in relation to you. They never were. And integrating that is not a brief process. It is a restructuring. It takes time. It leaves permanent marks. What you should understand, what you need to sit with and actually feel the weight of, is that you didn't do this to them. They built this situation themselves. They constructed the deception, the underestimation, the campaign of moves they thought were invisible. All you did was see clearly. All you did was refuse to pretend you couldn't read what was directly in front of you. The accuracy was not aggression. The knowing was not manipulation. You simply did not agree to be blind for their convenience. And that refusal, that quiet, principled refusal to play the role they cast you in, is what everything else follows from. There is a tax that every person pays for underestimating someone who perceives clearly. It is not paid immediately. It accrues. It compounds quietly in the background of every interaction, every assumption, every move made under the belief that the other person cannot see what's happening. And by the time the bill arrives, by the time accuracy lands in the room like a verdict, the total is staggering. You have been watching that bill accrue for some time now. And when it arrived in full, with interest, with precision, with the weight of everything they thought had expired. The specific cruelty of being exposed by accuracy rather than by evidence is that there is nowhere to redirect the blame. When someone exposes you with documentation, with proof, with records, you can argue about context, question the source, find procedural objections. But when someone exposes you with pure observation, when they describe the interior of your own behavior back to you with the precision of someone who was present for every moment of it, there is no procedure to invoke. There is no chain of custody to question. There is just the truth, spoken calmly, by someone who saw everything and chose to wait. People who underestimate the perceptive reveal everything in the process, because they're not careful around someone they've decided doesn't notice. They don't moderate themselves. They don't maintain the discipline they'd apply around someone they respected as an observer. They're relaxed in a way that is, ultimately, the most honest version of themselves. And the perceptive person, the one they've discounted, is receiving a completely unfiltered broadcast of who that person actually is. No performance, no management, just the raw truth of their behavior, delivered by their own casualness and arrogance. You received that broadcast. You received it for a long time. And what you understood from it, the complete picture you assembled from years of unguarded transmission, is something they can never take back. They can apologize. They can reframe. They can claim growth, change, misunderstanding. But they cannot unknow that you know. They cannot unring that bell. They cannot return to the version of reality where they were ahead of you. That version is gone, and its absence will reshape every interaction that follows for as long as any form of this relationship continues to exist. The silence that follows accuracy is its own form of power, because once they understand what you know, every silence becomes suspect. Every quiet moment becomes a potential observation. Every pause becomes something to interpret. They will never again be able to sit comfortably in your presence without wondering what you're seeing that you're not saying. That low-grade, constant, self-generated uncertainty, produced entirely by their own previous behavior, is the unavoidable inheritance of having been the person in this story that they chose to be. There is something that shifts in you permanently after a moment like this, after the accuracy lands, after the jaw drops, after the years of quiet knowing finally surface in a way that cannot be walked back. Something settles. Something that had been held in suspension, not quite tension, not quite waiting, but something in between finally resolves. Because the truth was always going to find its moment. The accuracy was always going to land somewhere. The only question was when. And now, that when has become now. Something in you can rest that hasn't rested in a long time. That rest is not complacency. It is not the satisfaction of revenge, because revenge was never the point and never needed to be. It is the specific peace that comes from having carried something real for a long time and finally setting it down. You held the truth. You held the knowing. You held the complete and accurate picture of a situation that others were pretending was different. You held all of that with composure, with dignity, with a refusal to distort your own perception for the sake of someone else's comfort. And that holding is the real achievement, not the reveal, the years before it, because they did try to make you doubt yourself. That is the part that deserves naming directly and without softness. There were moments, maybe many moments, where your accuracy was turned back on you as a character flaw. where you were told you were too suspicious, too analytical, too serious, too unwilling to simply take things at face value. The pressure to see less clearly was real. The social cost of perceiving accurately in environments that require you to pretend otherwise is real, and you paid that cost. You paid it and kept seeing anyway. That is not a small thing, that is everything. The crown you carry now is not made of the moment of exposure. It's made of the years before it. It's made of every moment you maintained your accuracy under pressure. Every moment you refused to trade clear sight for social ease. Every time you sat in a room full of people operating on false premises and chose to remain oriented to the truth instead of joining the performance. That is what the crown is forged from, and it fits exactly the way it should, not as a trophy held above the head, but as a recognition of something that was always already yours by right. You knew everything. You always knew, and now they know that you knew. And the version of every relationship that exists on the other side of your accuracy being known, that version belongs to you in a way the previous version never could have. Because in the previous version, your accuracy was your private asset, invisible to the people who mattered most. In this version, it is visible, known, demonstrated with a precision that cannot be argued against. And that visibility changes the terms of every interaction that follows, permanently, irrevocably, entirely in your favor.